Okay, good morning, everyone. It seems like we've resolved the technical issues. So welcome to the Regional Development Assessment Panel meeting of the 7th of May. My name's Tony Arias and I'm the presiding member. I'll introduce the other members. Nima Premji, who's the deputy presiding member to my left, and Lindsay Baxter, specialist member further to the left. We have in the meeting Councillor Shiano from the Shire of Capel, and we have online Councillor Ferguson. From the DAP Secretariat, we have Laura Simmons, Minute Secretary, and Zoe Henry, Governance. So with that, I will move to part A, and I will formally declare the meeting open and acknowledge the traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present of the land on which the meeting is being held. The meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2024. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 40(2)A. So with that, we'll move to item 2, which is apologies. We do have an apology from Councillor McCleary. Item 3 is members on leave of absence, which is Neil. Item 4, noting of minutes, just for information, the minutes of previous meetings are on the DAP website. So we move to part B, which is Shire of Capel, and item 1 is declarations of due consideration. Members, please confirm that you've duly considered the documentation that's been provided within part B of the agenda and part B of additional information. If you can do that by raising your hand. Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, can you confirm that verbally?
Yes, I can confirm verbally.
Thank you. Or duly declared. Item 2, disclosures of interest. We haven't had any disclosures of interest to date. Just for information, standing orders require declarations of interest being made where an item has gone to a council meeting. I don't know whether this particular item has gone to a council meeting. Perhaps Councillor Shiano, can you confirm that?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. So members, any late disclosures? Thank you. So we move to item 3, which is Form 1 DAP applications, and we have on the agenda item 3.1, which is lot 5002 Portobello Road, Dayala, which is a proposal for mixed-use development. We have 2 presenters. Standing orders provide for 3-minute presentations, which is not a lot of time. So I would encourage presenters to focus on what is considered most important. The first presenter, Matthew Bounds from the Coles Property Group. Matthew, over to you.
Thank you, the councillors, and thank you, panel, for your time today. So Coles purchased the site from the previous landowners back in 2017 with a certainty based on an established framework. Since the acquisition of the site, Coles have been focused and committed on delivering this development for the growing Daliella community and in ensuring that the proposal delivers a strong and successful centre for the community. A key aspect extremely important to Coles during the design phase is that the development considered fully the needs of the community, ensuring the centre was safe, convenient and easily accessible for all users, as well as providing a centre that offers great amenity and a pleasant place to swell. When considering the proposed built form and orientation for the centre, we first wanted to get a better understanding of the Shire's vision for both the area and the centre, including how it interacts with the surrounding developments. At our first meeting with the Shire, it was very clear that they had a very clear vision for the centre, along with key design issues that any future proposal should address, including the activation of Portobello Road, the activation and connection to the centre opposite, as well as the car park located adjacent existing car parking areas. With this in mind, the proposed centre has been laid out to ensure that it seeks to achieve both the Shire's and Coles' aspirations for the development. The main built form and tenancies located at the front have been orientated to face the existing Delhi shopping centre to reinforce the interaction between centres and the creation of a main street type environment. Portobello Road has been activated using a variety of different design solutions, which include glazing to the entire supermarket facade, the use of different materials to create visual interest, and the introduction of a secondary entrance to the centre directly off Portobello Road with a feature canopy over. In addition, F&B style tenancy has also been proposed on this with external seating and landscaping to sit beneath the canopy. This mirrors the development opposite to strengthen this location and intersection as a hub from which the main street radiates. Parking for the centre has been located at the rear to sit adjacent the existing car park, ensuring that all car parking is maintained in the one location, whilst also providing safe and convenient access to a click and collect drive-through, which will be directly accessed from the car park. A tree-lined edge to the car park adjacent Piccadilly Lane is proposed, which in the fullness of time will provide a soft edge between the car park and the garages of the adjoining residences located on the lane. Loading for the development has been located at the rear of the centre with access directly from Piccadilly Lane. During design, careful consideration has been given to the screening of the loading dock from the properties to the rear. And to achieve this, the proposed dock is fully screened using solid walls with a feature trellis to its face, allowing plants to climb the trellis and soften the overall appearance of the dock. In addition, the dock will also incorporate a solid screen gate across the access to the dock. Sustainability is a key focus for Coles and outlined in our Coles Sustainability Report 2023. And as part of our commitment to sustainability, we're proposing to deliver as part of this development a number of initiatives, including a greater amount of solar panels, reducing the amount of artificial shade over car parking bays by the use of trees, the use of recycled and reclaimed materials in the canopy, and smart LED lighting, the provision of electrical vehicle charging point, and also reduction of food waste by the incorporation of a food collection lockers and fridges to allow the collection of unsold edible food by our food rescue organisation, Second Bite. When we took our proposal back to the Shire, it was met with a great deal of support and appreciation of how the design had addressed all the fundamental design issues raised at our first meeting. This development represents a significant investment in the Delhi area by Coles, with construction costs sitting at 25 million. The construction of the development is expected to create circa 300 jobs during its construction and a further 128 indirect jobs on an ongoing basis. Post-completion, 120 of these 128 jobs will be through direct employment with the supermarket.
Matthew, I do need you to conclude, if you can summarise.
Yeah, with regards to project status, the project is currently tendered and the contractor ready to be appointed. And should you decide to grant approval for the development, we anticipate a start on site date for the works of June 24 and a launch of August 25. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. Members, questions of Mr. Bounds? Thank you for your presentation. The next presenter, Murray Castleton. Over
Thank
to
you.
Murray.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'd like to start by thanking the Shire's officers and confirming our support for their officer recommendation for conditional approval. We consider the Shire's report to be very thorough in addressing all relevant matters and in demonstrating the development's consistency with the principles of orderly and proper planning. The application has involved a responsive process of engagement with the Shire and other key stakeholders to ensure that the proposed development is aligned with the Shire's vision for the Dalyellup District Centre and that the development as designed responds appropriately to the immediate site context. The scale, nature and layout of the proposed development is consistent with the Dalyellup District Centre Activity Centre Plan and the applicable local development plan. These documents specifically identify the development of a second supermarket anchored shopping centre at the subject site to service the needs of the growing Dalyellup community. The development has also carefully considered its resultant interfaces, culminating in a design solution that provides secured activation to Portobello Road in a manner that avoids the potential for vacant tenancies fronting this intended main street environment. It interfaces appropriately with the existing shopping centre development to the north, mirroring areas of activation and the location of car parking facilities. And it mitigates the potential for noise impacts on the existing residences to the south of the subject site, which are all rear-loaded with single-storey garages fronting the proposed development site. The design of the development also incorporates positive design initiatives learnt from other recent engagements with the State Design Review Panel on other Coles Group projects, including the recently completed Florida Beach Shopping Centre and the recently approved Ravenswood Shopping Centre. This includes a focus on high-quality landscaping to soften interface conditions and to contribute to long-term tree canopy in the area and the provision of space for community use. The proposed new community space at the northern end of the Portobello Road frontage is activated by an associated food and beverage tenancy that will offer opportunities for alfresco dining and is positioned to assist creating a consolidated central activity node on Portobello Road, mirroring the location of the established community spaces to the north and on the opposite side of Portobello Road where there's a park and a playground. The development as a whole is of high quality and will assist in meeting the demand for retail services from the growing Dalyellup community. It is also a long-awaited development that has support from key stakeholders and represents an important step in realising the Shire's vision for the centre. For these reasons, the development warrants approval in accordance with the Shire's recommendation. That's basically the end of my presentation. We do have various other members of the extended project team available that pretty much cover off on all the technical disciplines. So if the panel's got any, I can tell you who they are if you would like me to let you know who's here. Otherwise, we can just direct queries to the relevant person and we can indicate who they are at that point in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Murray. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. We'll see what the questions are and you can redirect questions if necessary to the relevant members. Members, questions of Mr. Castleton? Ms. Baxter?
Hi, Murray. Lindsay Baxter. Just really a bit of a tidy-up question. In the RAR, the council commented that you initially had some concerns about the wording of conditions 3 and 4. You hadn't mentioned that in your presentation. Could the panel assume, if this moves towards an approval, that you're actually now fairly comfortable with conditions 3 and 4 as worded?
Look, yes. I mean, in an ideal world, I probably would have tidied up the conditions a little bit, but there's no material issue with any of them, so we're comfortable with them as presented.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Murray, I did have a question around the interface with the laneway, and Matthew, I think, sort of started talking about how that would be addressed. Can you perhaps provide a bit more detail about how amenity issues are mitigated?
I can pass you over to Nick Preston, who's our project architect. But the upshot is that the loading, I'm assuming you're referring primarily to the loading area rather than the car parking area. So the car parking area is basically open with a landscaped interface where there's going to be mature or tree plantings that will ultimately over time grow into a mature buffer. And that's what Matt was referring to as part of his commentary. The loading dock itself is in the area that's designated under the planning framework. We've been through a process of negotiation and discussions with the Shire as to how that arrangement will be dealt with. It'll essentially be a solid treated wall, and that's primarily to deal with, two things: obstructing views into a loading dock, which by its nature is a loading dock. It's not an area of high visual amenity typically. And secondly, it also allows the trellis to be put up the outside of the walls to allow plantings to grow up the wall so that you get a softened green interface. And obviously the solid wall condition deals with any acoustic issues which might go towards the properties or the residential properties on the other side of the laneway, and any future development that might occur on the other corner site that actually forms part of the district centre. Through those discussions, one of the issues that came up through the original open aperture to the loading dock was the escape of noise, put it simply. So the way we've dealt with that is by using a roller door, which will be open to let the vehicles in, shut while they're unloading, and then open again to let the vehicles exit. And we've been able to demonstrate through the acoustic modelling that's been done by Herring Storer Acoustics that then demonstrates compliance under the regulations to the extent that that loading dock can in fact be used 24 hours a day and still meet those regulatory requirements. So that's essentially where we got to. So hopefully that answers your question, but Matt and Nick may be able to respond further if you've got additional queries.
Murray, from my perspective, that's fine. I wanted to get a bit more detail about that, so I'm comfortable with that. Members, any other? Councillor Shiano?
Yeah, thank you, Murray. Sebastian Scatter here, the Shire of Capel. Just in regards to the entrance points to the proposed car park, and particularly those along Piccadilly Lane, was any consideration given to why it was perhaps necessary to have the third entry and exit point of the park? And I'm referring to the one that is further to the west, given that obviously that would direct traffic onto Piccadilly Lane, whereas the other could be considered as perhaps being, sort of towards closer to the intersection. Was there any consideration given as to why it was necessary to have those 3 points of entry?
Did you want to comment on that? Darren Levy, our traffic consultant, is also online, so he could perhaps comment on that if that would be of assistance. Darren, did you have any comments to offer on that issue? Or he was online.
Yeah.
Here he is.
Just figured you might like to see me as well as hear me. Look, really, it's just for practicality of access through the car park. It is a relatively small car park in the context of some of these shopping centres, but obviously the laneway is there, and I assume it's the eastern driveway that we're talking about closest to Tiffany Centre. You're right in that potentially the car park could function okay without it, but it will function better with it, is the bottom line.
So in the traffic corridor mapping, is there potentially, I'm trying to seek a bit of more information on how we think that will be utilised by the public, or what level of utilisation could occur from having that entry point onto Piccadilly Lane. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add further on that, but otherwise I'm probably happy to leave it there. If that's...
Yeah, and the drawing that's shown in the traffic report, we anticipate that the majority of traffic will access the site from the northern side rather than off Piccadilly Lane. And I think the numbers probably end up, it's probably about 2/3, 1/3. And the majority of trips that do use Piccadilly Lane, we expect will come from the Portobello Road end, and the smallest amount from the Tiffany Centre end.
Thank you. Just a follow-up to that, and perhaps the Shire officers might respond to this later on. Murray, in terms of the planning that's been done in this area, more particularly for the district centre, it was always intended that access would be provided via the laneway into the site?
Yeah, that's correct. There was quite a major driveway that's shown somewhat to the east of where the driveway, I think where the driveway entrance is that the councillor might be referring to. As part of the site planning, I think we believe and identified, and the Shire can speak on behalf of themselves, but I think they agree that the configuration that's shown at the moment is more appropriate, because the planning that was done at the time when the planning framework was developed didn't really conceive of things like click and collect and some of the ways that these contemporary centres operate. So we've adopted the philosophy that underpinned the movement network in the centre and modified it in a way that actually responds to the contemporary design of the centre that you would put forward and consider in that 2024 environment. But at a fundamental level, access was always conceived of from Piccadilly Lane into the centre car park.
Thank you. Members, any other questions?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. Look, I want to follow up on Councillor Shihano's, Councillor John Ferguson, Capel, Shire. I want to follow up on Councillor Shihano's line of questioning. In reading the report, the issue of both the unloading dock and what appears on the documents that I've read seems to be the likely primary entrance to the car park is off Piccadilly Lane, which is adjacent to the residential area. It's a small residential precinct, but nonetheless, it's a reality. And I wondered, I know we're not going to change the rules now, but I would wonder if there's any prospect of enhancing or encouraging access to the car park from the alternative location, alternative entrance. And indeed, I can't find, and that's probably my inadequacies, but I can't find what the hours of operation, if any, limitations there are on the loading docks area. And because I am concerned, I think overall, I'm pretty comfortable with the broader approach, but that particular issue does concern me. So can you perhaps answer that in my, sorry if I apologise for my absence of not picking it up in the document so far.
Darren, did you want to comment on the operation of the car park from the access perspective? I think you actually did. I think you did comment on it in your the points you made previously, but perhaps if you could.
It did say, sorry. I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
Look, from an access point of view, we expect the majority of the traffic coming to the centre is coming from the north, either down Portobello Road or Tiffany Centre on the eastern side. So we expect that coming from the north on Portobello Road, it's an easy left turn into the roadway adjacent to the Woolworths, and then access into the car park from there. And from the north on the other side, there's a roundabout that gives an easy right turn into that same laneway that runs between the Coles and the Woolies, and that gives access into the car park as well. So we do expect that'll be the primary entry points. Obviously, vehicles can proceed further south and access via Piccadilly Lane as well, which is simply good from a point of view of spreading traffic load, etc. To get back out and travel towards the north, you can't do that onto Portobello Road adjacent to the Woolies, but you can do it from Piccadilly Lane. But it's also easy to slip out the other way onto Tiffany Centre and extend back north from there, and hence the spread of traffic that I talked about earlier.
And if I can perhaps expand on that, I think, Councillor Ferguson, you need to be mindful of where the traffic's coming from, and I think Darren's comment is quite right. So the traffic's not primarily going to come from the south, it'll come from the north, and it will access the car park from the most obvious and convenient location, that being via the driveway that sits on the northern side of the centre and via the access points that Darren alluded to at the northeastern extent or extremity of the car park. So we're not expecting large volumes of customer traffic to access via the entrance onto Piccadilly Lane from Portobello Road. In respect to your other point, the Shire's officers, and I can see them online here, rightly took a very strict approach to the way that acoustic compliance with the regulator requirements needed to be demonstrated, and that relates directly to the operation and treatments to the loading dock. What we've been able to do is to demonstrate quite clearly that all acoustic movements or all acoustic sound arising from the use of the loading dock 24 hours a day meet regulatory requirements. So on that basis, no restrictions on the use of the loading dock currently proposed. What I would say, and perhaps, unless you're sort of involved in the operation of shopping centres and you kind of know the way the loading areas work, is that the actual frequency of truck movements that come into the loading dock is very limited. So you don't get a lot of movements coming in, and I'd probably get Matt to comment on that. So you nearly, the extent of which there is noise generating activities, they're not as significant as you might think. But I might get you to comment on that.
And obviously, given the location, we anticipate probably 2 deliveries a day. One would be probably during the morning, and then the last one would probably be about sort of 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening, given sort of the distance to travel from the DC, so arrival time, all that's coordinated with the store, and obviously all that unloading activity then occurs behind the screen, behind the enclosed gate, controlling that noise. There is some other smaller vehicles that we may have, a couple of vans possibly delivering fresh juice, etc. But typically you'd probably see about 4 deliveries a day.
So I think it's important to understand, that the facts around that the number of truck movements that actually come in and out of loading docks. And also there's a very limited number of additional specialty tenancies here, and they're serviced from a different location on the site, which is not at the interface with the residential development. So that further limits the number of trucks that are coming into the dedicated Coles loading dock, if you like.
Councillor Ferguson, is there anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, Murray, for the presentation. We now move to the Shire of Capel officers. Got Bob and Scott. Members, questions?
Thank you, presiding member. This is Nima Frenji, the deputy presiding member. In reading the report, I got to the traffic impact assessment. In the traffic impact assessment, it is clearly stated that there needs to be a couple of modifications made to swept path analysis. The first one being the Portobello Road and Piccadilly Lane intersection. It was on page 187 of the report, which was the swept path analysis for the HRV. And then on the following page, at the swept path for B99s near the click and collect. Now, which is fine, they're not major, but that needs to be done to make sure that there is safety. However, I can't see anywhere in the conditions or advisory notes where the Shire has asked these particular works to be carried out prior to the occupation of the development. Can you please comment on that, or where do you believe you'll be able to capture that?
Bob, you're on mute.
You're on
Oh,
mute.
okay. What about now?
Yep.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. I believe it could probably be captured under condition 10, or the first condition, which talks about hang on. The condition 2, probably where it captures the general plans that have been lodged with us. If you believe it necessary to add a particular condition, that would be acceptable as well.
So you believe the drawings will capture, as it's put in the conditions, condition number 2 will capture, which particular drawing would that be, if you don't mind me?
It may be actually, that's probably not entirely correct. So probably condition 10, but again, if it's the need for an additional condition or additional wording to condition 10.
I think it might be appropriate, as it is quite important, given that you've got HRVs that needs to turn in and out of there, and it is being done on the Portobello Road. So I would propose that we make an amendment to condition 10. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I did raise the issue of the strategic planning that has been done for the general locality and sort of access issues onto this laneway. It would seem in reading the documentation that the intent was always to provide some level of access from the laneway into the retail component. Can you comment on that?
Yes, so this is in relation to the car parking access at the eastern end of the property, is that correct?
More generally in terms of whether it was always intended that the laneway would provide some form of access into the shopping centre.
In terms of so it's pretty much guided by the outline development plan and the local development plan. And the idea was that the key focus would be on the northern elevation and Portobello Road, and the laneway would be providing I suppose, the service access. And there was a point of access identified in the local development plan to provide access to the car park. I don't believe it was ever intended to have activation or so forth along the laneway itself.
I suppose just to add to that as well, with the outline development plan and the local development plan, there is only a single access point, I believe, identified onto that southern car parking area. Now, the discussions that we've had internally with our traffic and engineering department is that by having two access points, it actually alleviates any further banking, acknowledging full well that the lots on Piccadilly Lane are all rear loaded. So from our perspective, it actually ends up ensuring that there's a greater flow of traffic so that residents are not necessarily stuck having to exit their property in a longer period of time than what typically would occur with two access points.
Thank you. Members, any other questions of the Shire officers? Okay, thank you. In which case, we now move to the actual item, and we've got a recommendation in the RAR to approve subject to conditions. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation in the RAR? Ms. Premji? Is a seconder for the motion? Councillor Shiana? Ms. Premji, did you want to talk to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Overall, looking at the development and what has been presented to us, it complies with the applicable statutory planning framework, and it has been very clearly stated both by the developer and the Shire that they have addressed the Shire's design concerns in keeping with the vision of the centre. The concerns that has been expressed by the nearby residents and also the government agencies have been addressed by design modifications and the conditions and advisory notes that have been put forward. With that, and just be changed to conditions.
Yeah, foreshadow that. Yeah. Councillor Shiana?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. Look, I think first and foremost, in the comment that's been made on a number of occasions here is that generally the DA itself, or the proposal itself, is very much in line with what the vision for that precinct has been all along, with the master planning that has occurred in Dale Up. And I think it just, quite frankly, as has been already sort of addressed around, the application is very much compliant with the planning framework, and I think that I'm very satisfied with what's taken place in order to address some of those acoustic challenges as well. It's pretty clear, of course, that there is some interest around the traffic management and Piccadilly Lane, and it's been quite useful, the discussion that we've had around that, and I'm glad to hear that other members have had queries around that as well. But ultimately, yeah, happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Shiana. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Anyone else wanting to speak to the motion? Ms. Baxter?
Thank you. I would also just like to indicate that I will support this application on the basis that it's a discrete enclosed shopping centre that complies with the relevant statutory and strategic objectives for the site. The uses are approvable under the local planning scheme and having regard to the well-defined district and local structure planning. The proposal has been assessed as being largely compliant against all the relevant criteria with respect to its location, design and accessibility. Any variations have been assessed as acceptable and workable. Accordingly, I accept the responsible authority report as competent and the recommendation for approval. I also do foreshadow some minor changes to the recommended conditions just to make them consistent and to improve grammar.
Thank you, Ms. Baxter. Is anyone else wanting to make any
Yeah,
comment?
Mr. President, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Yeah, Councillor Ferguson.
Look, I just wanted to endorse the comments that were already made by the panel, and it has come as a pleasure to me to look at the report and find the thorough job that's been done, and how largely the compliance was primarily achieved with the original application, and the work that council officers have done with the proponent to actually tidy up the issues that were causing some concern. It's been expressed, the concerns today about the Piccadilly Lane activation, and I would just look forward to the operator being consistent with their undertaking or their suggestion that the traffic movements will be relatively limited and not cause distress to the residents. So I'm happy to support the motion, and any minor amendments that are likely to be forthcoming, I'm happy to support those probably.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I'll also be supporting the motion. As has already been indicated, the proposal fits well into the planning framework, and in terms of potential impacts, it is within a district centre, and you would expect that there is some additional impacts as a result of this location. I'd also echo Councillor Ferguson's comments about the detail in the RAR, and would commend the Shire officers and the applicant for working together to get to this point. And as I said, I think the proposal merits support. So in terms of potential changes,
yes, condition 10, prior to the commencement of development, a detailed engineering design for the intersection of Portobello Road and Piccadilly Lane, as per the traffic impact assessment, and then comma, and then car parking, etc.
Do we have a seconder for that? Ms. Baxter? Is anyone opposed to that? If not, I'm going to put all those in favour. Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, unanimous, thank you. Ms. Primdew, was there anything else? No? Ms. Baxter, you foreshadowed some change?
I did. Really, these are just very minor corrections and so forth. Condition 4, although waste management plan isn't the proper name of something, it is a document that we're fairly familiar with, and I think that should probably just be in capitals. So waste management plan with capitals. That's condition 4. Part D of condition 4, the word comply probably just needs to be compliance, so that the sentence actually reads correctly from its preamble. Condition 5, again, probably just putting building permit in capitals there, just to be consistent with the other conditions. Conditions 6 and 7 have popped in the word building permit application. Possibly just remove the words application from conditions 6 and 7, keeps it then consistent with the other conditions. Conditions 13 and 14, I was tempted to correct grammar there, but I think I'll leave those as they are. Condition 14, so I'll leave condition 14. Condition 17, probably the wording there needs to say prior to occupation, a noise management plan, and again, we might as well put those in capitals because we're referring to lots of documents that have a title, but it needs to say prior to occupation, a noise management plan is to be prepared for the satisfaction of the Shire of Capel. I just make the comment that probably advice note 10 probably should have gone below advice note 6 or be part of advice note 6 as they relate to the same condition, but I'm content to leave it as it is. It was just an observation that it is kind of popped in at the end and it refers to a condition that's slightly out of order, but I won't propose to change that.
So do we have a seconder, Ms. Frengie? I think they're all administrative changes, so I don't think it's necessary to discuss those. But is anyone opposed to what's been proposed? In which case, I'm going to put that. All those in favour? Councillor Ferguson?
In favour.
Thank you. So that's unanimous. Members, any other changes to conditions? In which case, Ms. Prentice, you moved the original motion. Do you want to make any closing comments? No? In which case, we have a motion to approve. We have slightly modified some conditions. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Councillor Ferguson?
In favour.
That's unanimous. Thank you, members. So we'll finish off the other part of the agenda. Part C, other business. Item 1 is SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals. They're on the agenda for information. Item 2, general business. Members, is there any general business? No? Thank you. And so the final thing is meeting closure. Thank you everyone for your participation. I will declare the meeting closed at 10:21. Thank you again.